The next item of business is topical questions, and at question number 1, excuse me, I call Katie Clark.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that the number of new rape cases being reported to the police has increased by more than a third since 2020-2021.
Cabinet Secretary Angela Constance.
Presiding Officer, sexual violence is abhorrent, which is why we are taking robust action through the Equally Safe strategy, focusing on prevention, ensuring that perpetrators are held to account and improving our laws, such as through the current Victims' Witness and Justice Reform Bill, which would introduce a sexual offences court. Of course, I am concerned by any rise in new rape cases being reported. There are multiple potential factors behind this, including a greater willingness of victims to come forward. I very much want people to have continued confidence in reporting such crimes and encourage victims and survivors to access support services, which is why we have increased funding to Rape Crisis Scotland's national advocacy project with over £6 million over the next 3 years. Ultimately, though, of course, it is those who perpetrate violence and abuse, the majority of whom are men, that must change their actions and behaviour. It is only through fundamental societal change that women can be protected.
Katie Clark.
Does the Cabinet Secretary believe that there has been a rise in the levels of rape in society in recent years, or does she believe that this increase relates to higher levels of reporting, as she mentioned? And is the Scottish Government doing any work to try and get a better understanding of whether there is an increase in sexual violence, particularly given some of the challenges we know we face?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I very much thank Ms Clark for her topical question today, and I suppose this has been the conundrum that many of us have wrestled with. We know that historically and indeed presently that under-reporting remains an issue, and any endeavours that improves this and encourages more victims and witnesses to come forward is, of course, to be welcomed. So I suppose my answer is a bit of both. I am concerned that sexual offences remain underreported. The answer would be yes. And am I concerned about the prevalence of sexual offending in society? Absolutely.
Katie Clark.
It's interesting to maybe hear from the Cabinet Secretary on another occasion as to whether they are doing any work to look at these underlying trends. But what information can the Cabinet Secretary give about the profile of women who are reporting rape? For example, whether it tends to be younger women or older women, and whether there have been changes in recent years, because there has been suggestions that there has been an increase in rape reports from very young women and girls reporting rape. And does she understand that to be the case, or is it something that she is looking at?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, it was remiss of me not to say to Ms Clark in her first supplementary that we of course will work and continue to work with all partners across the justice system, in particular police, Crown Office and the courts, to understand the specific underlying factors, and of course victim support organisations who we work with and support will have a perspective on this that will add to the fundamental facts and profile of victims and witnesses. There are, of course, concerns that, due to the nature of offending, including online offending, that there is a wider range of women affected. It has always been the case that there have been particular myths around rape, that it was predominantly targeted towards younger women, when we know that historically women over 40 are at risk to the same degree. But I will endeavour to get far more granular and up-to-date information to Ms Clark and indeed Chamber.
Audrey Nicholl.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And I think, as highlighted in Katie Clark's line of questioning, there are many factors behind changes in the incidence of reporting of sexual offences. And this latest increase is to be taken very seriously. And I hope it is a reflection that more women feel able to come forward. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if she can further outline what action the Scottish Government is taking to ensure every woman who comes forward feels respected and supported throughout the whole process?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I mean, we all want women to feel that they can report sexual offences, knowing that they will be taken seriously and treated with respect at each stage, from reporting to the police through to any court action. However, I recognise that going through the court process can be extremely challenging for victims, which is why we are actively aiming to improve the experience through the Victims, Witness and Justice Reform Bill. And key reforms there are about embedding trauma-informed practice and introducing statutory anonymity for victims of sexual offences, which I hope will continue to support victims and encourage public confidence in reporting. And in addition to that, we want women to be supported by specialist organisations, which is why we'll invest £21.6 million in the Delivering Equally Safe, which supports 115 projects.
Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In 2023 to 24, the median time from offence to verdict for non-historic sexual offences, including rape and sexual assault, was over 3 years. Now, Victim Support Scotland are clear that long court delays make victims less likely to report crimes. So since those figures came out, what precisely has the Cabinet Secretary done to reduce those timescales, and when will victims see results?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, victims are right now seeing results in terms of the overall delay and in terms of addressing the court backlog. I do accept, of course, that the time for solemn cases to reach conclusion is too long, and while the reduction in the COVID court backlog has reduced significantly, it's reduced by more than 50%. The number of outstanding scheduled trials is now less than 20,000. At its peak, it was 42,000. But we do accept there is much more to do with regards to solemn cases, bearing in mind that we are seeing increasing reports of serious sexual offences, which may well result in increasing prosecutions, which every indication is that our courts, particularly our solemn courts, will continue to be busy.
Faisal Chowdhury. Thank
you, Presiding Officer. Last week, constituents contacted me worried about risk of rape and sexual attack in public parks in Edinburgh. They mentioned the lack of lighting making our park unsafe at night, especially in winter. Can the Cabinet Secretary advise how the Scottish Government is ensuring our built environment is not contributing to these horrific attacks?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, Mr Chowdhury raised an important issue about the physical environment, and the Scottish Government works with our partners in local government via COSLA, albeit that the safety and lighting is, of course, an issue for local government. But I go back to my initial answer. Women will be safer in this country when men change their behaviour.
Thank you. Question number 2, Stephen Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what immediate action it will take to address the reported failure by NHS boards to publish significant adverse event reviews related to mother and baby deaths in hospitals.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Healthcare Improvement Scotland published its updated national framework for reviewing and learning from adverse events in NHS Scotland in February this year. NHS boards must operate within this robust national framework. This includes a template for sharing learning from adverse events locally and nationally. The Scottish Perinatal Network have facilitated tailored cross-board learning opportunities following adverse events to share learning across the maternity and neonatal community. The Scottish Government is currently meeting directly with leaders from all NHS boards as part of a programme of work to improve significant adverse event reviews. This includes ongoing engagement with Healthcare Improvement Scotland on the renewed approach to reviews. My officials are meeting with Healthcare Improvement Scotland on the 15th of May to discuss this important work.
Stephen Kerr.
I'm grateful to the Minister for her response to the question. And can I begin by paying tribute to the Sunday Post journalist Marion Scott, whose outstanding public interest journalism has once again exposed failings that have devastating consequences for families in Scotland. Now, we know that despite the Information Commissioner saying that they can, more than 500 redacted significant adverse event reviews into avoidable deaths of mothers and babies have not been published. Not one. These are tragedies that should have been investigated and learned from Instead, they've been hidden. So, can I ask the Minister, how on earth has this been allowed to happen under a government that promised openness and accountability after previous maternity care scandals? What exactly, or when exactly, was the Minister made aware of this widespread failure by NHS boards to publish these reports, and what did she do about it?
Minister.
I thank Stephen Kerr for his supplementary question. Any death of a mother or baby is a tragedy, and I extend my heartfelt sympathies and condolences to all who have experienced this trauma. We have to recognise that the vast amount of public engagement with National Health Services, our National Health Service, is positive, but we are certainly not complacent. And I read the piece in the Sunday Post on Sunday, and I understand that from Healthcare Improvement Scotland that the Scottish Information Commissioner determined in 2023, in response to an FOI request, that individual SEERs were effectively part of the patient record, and NHS boards would be at risk of breaching patient confidentiality if they were to be published in full. However, as I highlighted in my first answer, the Scottish Perinatal Network has done a lot of work in this to ensure that patients, families and carers are at the centre of the review process, and also, importantly, the safety and the psychological safety of staff.
Stephen Kerr.
I appreciate what the Minister is saying. However, we're talking about the redacted reports. We're not talking about the full reports. We're talking about the redacted reports. And we're talking about children who have died, about mothers who have been lost. We're talking about families who have been left with no answers, no justice, no access to reports that should have been shared with them as a matter of basic human decency. So can I ask the Minister, when a family has lost a baby and asks to see the review into what happened, is there any justification, any at all, for refusing them that redacted information? Will the Minister say now, unequivocally, that these reports must be published? And does she agree with me that there can be no place, none, for secrecy or defensiveness in our NHS, that families deserve the truth, that accountability is not an optional extra, but the absolute minimum we owe to those who have suffered the worst possible imaginable loss?
Minister.
The SEER review is a review carried out by experts into what went wrong and why. It's there to create a fuller picture of what happened and also what changes need to be made as a result. These are learning and system learning exercises which are incredibly important. And the revised framework that was introduced by HIS includes a template for boards to use when reviewing SEERs, and it also includes a new learning summary template which will be published on a new online community of practice once completed.
Thank you. Emma Harper.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. In addition to what the Minister is describing about actions in adverse event reviews, could the Minister please advise what updates the Scottish Government has had from health boards across the country regarding the steps which are being taken to sustain and enhance maternity services, including in Wigtonshire in the west of NHS D&G region?
Minister.
The Scottish Government published a suite of documents for implementation by NHS boards on the 6th of February 2025. These were produced to support the aim of improving maternity and neonatal care in Scotland and were the product of a co-development approach, drawing on the expertise of our clinical and third sector partners. We are currently developing a robust process for monitoring progress towards implementation, and our Best Start report will be published in the coming weeks, and this will summarise responses from all NHS boards on implementation of the recommendations in the Best Start across Scotland.
Megan Gallagher.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We did know about these concerns previously. Whistleblowers at NHS Lothian raised concerns about staff shortages at a maternity unit last year. An investigation launched back in 2024 found that there has been a toxic relationship between managers and midwives. One midwife, who remained anonymous, spoke to STV News last year and said management didn't listen to staff concerns. We'd say we're short-staffed and they'd say it was fine. I imagine that this will not be the only case in terms of health above-board relationships between managers and midwives. So can I ask the Minister, how do we create that culture to improve relationships between managers and midwives and to encourage whistleblowing should there be concerns?
Minister.
I welcome the apology from NHS Lothian to its maternity care staff following the report of the independent review of its women's services. NHS Lothian has committed to working with staff in maternity services to ensure they feel supported at work, safe to raise concerns and able to thrive. And I expect NHS Lothian to take forward this work as a priority to ensure that this learning is translated promptly into action to improve staff experience at work, so they are empowered to continue to deliver the best, safest care possible for mothers, their babies and their families.
Carol Mockin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I thank Stephen Kerr for raising this really important issue in the Chamber, and I hope the Minister will have more to say about this issue. Families deserve more. Can I also ask, though, does the Minister feel that the Government has done enough to ensure the shared learning from significant adverse events happens for the staff? Because if the families are not getting details, how do we make sure these things do not happen again and our staff are also at risk?
Minister.
I thank Carol Mockin for her question and agree that we have to ensure we get the right support for our staff that are working in our NHS maternity units. As I highlighted in one of my responses to Mr Kerr, one of the key things that the Scottish Perinatal Network highlighted was the importance of the psychological safety of the staff. And in my response to Megan Gallagher's question, I very much support the work that NHS Lothian are doing to ensure that their staff get the right support to ensure that they can carry out their roles, which are incredibly important to all of us that live in Scotland.
And Alex Cole-Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, it seems right now that the only answers available to the bereaved families at the heart of this is in the journalism of the Sunday Post. They're getting precious little from Scottish ministers and nothing from this chamber. The Minister will recall that on 2 occasions last year, following a spike in neonatal deaths and adverse neonatal ward events in 2021 and in 2022, I asked the First Minister or the Minister in question to make time available in government time to debate these findings. She said at first she would look at that and then secondly told me there were no plans to. Will she now, at the third time of asking, make parliamentary time available for consideration of these very concerning events?
Minister.
I thank Cole-Hamilton for his question and remember our previous conversations on this. I'm content to take that away.